for life.
Good morning, everyone. Look at this. It's 11 ish on a Wednesday morning. And that means it's time for Elevenses with the Reps at Diesel Bookstore. Every week we get together here at 11-ish. Fashionably, it's only a couple of minutes. And we meet with our fabulous publishers representatives and our wonderful booksellers, and we talk about all of the great new books or recently released, upcoming, and old favorites over here. And we post the links to everything we talk about in the chat bar over there, so you can click on them later and order them from Diesel. It's fabulous. We go down rabbit holes. We explore all kinds of always on topic. It's always books, but it always goes in interesting directions. So if you're new, joining us for the first time, feel free to hop in on the chat there and comment on anything or ask questions about anything we talk about today. And I am going to introduce all of the wonderful people who are joining us today. It's Ladies' Day at Elevenses. You and Joey, of course, in the back there. But before I do that, I want to talk about our, yes, of course, always Joey. I want to talk about, just side note, I always, when I say and Joey, I always think about a cute kangaroo, because the babies, for those of you who don't know, are called Joeys, the baby kangaroos. So sorry, Joey, but it's cute. Events I was going to talk about coming up here. We had do a little restructuring of events. And so this is what's happening coming up tonight at 6:30 p.m. We are welcoming Nick Ochar to the store, and he'll be discussing and signing a walker in the evening. And joining him in conversation will be Mark Weingarten, and somebody here knows who that is. Lynn. I'll let you pop in with that later. And then we are going to be joined by Robert Craze on Thursday, January 30th at 6:30 p.m. That's a rescheduled event, but he will be there discussing and signing The Big Empty, an Elvis Cole and Joe Pike novel. You don't want to miss that one. And on Sunday, another rescheduled event, another one you don't want to miss. And I believe Andrea talked about this book last week. It's Kim from LA, Kim Dower, will be in the store discussing and signing What She Wants, poems on obsession, desire, despair, euphoria. So that'll be Sunday at 3 p.m. And in case I have missed anything, Joey has put a very handy link up there for, you can click on that and just see all the events even further out than what I just talked about. So you can check that out. Now let me introduce everybody who's here today to talk about a really impressive and fabulous, very exciting slate of books today. So joining us today, we have Andrea Tetrick from PGW, Julia Callahan from Hachette, Shannon Grant from Simon & Schuster, and joining us from up there in LA in the store, we've got Lynn, and she's our bookseller today. Thank you, Lynn, for joining us sort of last minute. Right, we're queued up. Let's get going. Julia, lead us off.
Okay, I am gonna lead off with one of our big books of the season. Came out yesterday. It is one I am excited about. This is Nico Case's memoir, The Harder I Fight, the More I Love You. And I will say that I'm like a pretty big Nico Case fan. There are people that are bigger Nico Case fans than I am, but I really do like her a whole lot. And so when I heard we were getting this, actually, one of my booksellers emailed me before I even knew we were getting this book and asked for a galley. So I know it's highly anticipated for
That's
folks,
impressive.
I know, right? There's a lot of books. I don't always know what we have coming. But what's so immediately then I downloaded the manuscript and I read the whole thing, and I gotta say, like, it gave me the same feeling that I had when I first read Patti Smith's Just Kids, which I said to myself, this book is for people that don't know who Nico Case is, as well as people who absolutely love Nico Case. Because really it's a memoir, but and it really spoke to me. I'm an only child and she was an only child, and her parents, unlike mine, my parents were wonderful, but like her parents maybe didn't really want kids, and that was pretty apparent. So she spent a lot of her childhood alone. She lived in a rural area in Washington, spent a lot of her childhood alone, but because of that had this like extremely active imagination. And she credits a lot of that playing alone and having to make up things for how she writes and how she sort of creates songs and creates art. And in that way, it's just a beautiful book. It's so well written. I was struck by how well written it was. I mean, she's a great lyricist, but I think I always am like, when people who aren't book writers sort of knock one out of the park, I'm always a little bit impressed by that. Yeah, I just can't say enough good things about it. The harder I fight, the more I love you. Whether or not you're a big fan of Nico Case, I think this book is just a wonderful memoir that you're really going to get something out of. And something that makes you sort of remember that how important creativity is to everyone, adults, children, everyone, and just having those moments to be alone and be sort of bored, and how that sort of manifests creativity. This is a special book, a really wonderful one.
I agree 100% on how special it is and unique. And I think that Patti Smith, Just Kids, is a really good um, comparable title. And the other one that I'm thinking of also is Last Chance Texaco, the Ricky Lee Jones memoirs. And all three of these are sort of surprising in the um, the actual writing of the book, and how kind of unexpected it is, where it stands sort of really alone, and like you said, can appeal to somebody who has no idea who she is, or are big fans, you know. So and so all three of those, I think all three of these are, and that makes it very special, and it makes it appealing to a much broader base. And I think they knew about this from the beginning, because I've been seeing a lot about this book since which is how your bookseller probably found out about it, scratching around for it. But it's always really exciting when one of these book comes around, because they're far and few between. So it really is a special book. Thanks, Julia.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Andrea. Hi.
Hi. That sounds great. And the cover, they really nailed that cover. It's wonderful.
The cover's great. I love that cover.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she drew that monster. I'm 97% sure.
Yeah. Well, a multifaceted and multi-vectored talent, clearly. I wanted to talk today about Europa Edition's The Ghost of Rome. And this is from Joseph O'Connor, one of our great historical novelists, for sure. And this is the second in a series of novels about that follows the life during World War II, and an Irish priest who has been stationed in the Vatican, who is running an underground resistance movement to try to get Allied prisoners of war out, and also just Allied soldiers who are on the run and trying to escape the Nazi scourge. And he has a little group of resistance worker civilians, and they meet clandestinely as a choir, And that's how they basically plan their feats of daring do under the noses of the Nazis. And this one, I think, is just as good as the first book in this series called My Father's House, that did extremely well and got a lot of great attention. And this one is not yet published officially, but it is in stores and it's selling rather briskly. And I just wanted to talk about it because I'm not going to be this. It comes out in early February, but I'm not going to be on Elevenses for a while. So I just wanted to get this in front of people's eyes and hopefully lodge it in their consciousness, because I just think this is fantastic. The commander of the Nazis who's controlling Rome at this time is seriously one of the most complexly evil and interesting characters that in terms of how I've seen Nazi officers portrayed in literature. He is, of course, the nemesis of our father, and this is just really great. It works as a historical literary fiction, but it also is a really great thrilling espionage novel as well. So it's got both commercial and literary chops. And this is from Europa, as I think I mentioned, 400 pages. So it's you can really get into this one. It's $28. Beautiful cover there. It's looking good on tables and people are picking it up. So thanks for giving this one a try. We love it.
Absolutely. I was super excited to see this one, and I wanted to read it, but I gave it to my husband first, who is already a fan, and so I knew that he would make excellent and immediate use of it, which he did, and gave it the thumbs up. He's been a fan, and that's how I heard about Joseph O'Connor in the beginning, and this one's great. It's got everything, right? I mean, what else do you want? It's got espionage, it's got World War II, it's got Rome, it's got priests. I mean, and it's great writing. It's a really easy recommend, Andrea, I think, for anybody, and anybody who asks me what, in this genre, what's a good book, this is definitely number one on my recommend list. So a great pick. Thanks, Andrea.
You're more than welcome.
All right, Shannon.
Okay. First up, I'm going to talk about a book. It's a pre-order, so I'm sorry. I might have jumped the gun, but it's one of my favorites of the season, and I'm on so infrequently. I didn't want to miss it.
Well, whose fault is that, Shannon?
I know. I'm sorry. It's a gorgeous debut. It's called Tilt. It's Emma Pate, and it is. I know Deborah's a fan, but it is set in Portland. The premise is that there is a woman who is 9 months pregnant, and very belatedly she finds herself in an IKEA shopping for a crib, questioning all sorts of things. And I'm not spoiling anything by telling you this. The big one, earthquake hits, and the IKEA is everything around her is decimated. And the story is basically she's left, on her own with no car or no phone and injured. And it's her walk across the city, 9 months pregnant, to try to find her husband. The writing is gorgeous. It's kind of like her talking to her baby, she calls Bean, the entire walk, as well as, going through just the journey, kind of this apocalyptic journey across the city that's decimated. The chapters are short and they move at this propulsive clip. It's a meditation on someone about to become a mother, and also on her marriage. She's alternately yearning for her husband, while reflecting on, them being mad at each other. It's just, I love it so much. It's so, so good. Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, it's one of those I picked up and I couldn't put it down until the very end, and super excited for it.
I have been waiting for this book to actually, what is the actual publication date of this book?
It's like March 25th. I felt like it
it's
moved
not until March. This book really needs to be out already.
I know. I feel like it was earlier and then it moved later.
Oh, maybe that's what happened. Okay, but anyway,
Yeah.
we'll talk. We will talk about it again. So I
But
don't think
order
you're
it now,
necessarily-
because I don't want you to forget about it.
No, pre-order it. No, absolutely pre-order it. But we will talk about. I will definitely be talking about it again. Because I really loved this book, and because I thought, okay, there's so many things that could go wrong with this kind of setup.
Yeah.
It could be, with her talking to the baby, that could go wrong. It could be all kinds of things. It could, the disaster thing, the pregnant thing, all of this. I'm like, I've got to see how this author handles all of this. And it was so good. It was so interesting. It was so different. But also it is, I lived in Portland, and I lived near, I knew where everything was that she was talking about. It's very specific, but it's a love letter to Portland also in its way.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
she talked about seeing this city destroyed and all of these landmarks and places and all of the emotions and memories that are tied to all of these places at various points in her life and her marriage. And that you can, whether it doesn't, you don't have to know Portland, although knowing Portland really brought it home for me, but it is the idea of these things, these places you love, and how meaningful they are to you, what happens when that is distorted and destroyed, or otherwise wrecked. So it's the disaster thing, yes, but also it's a sort of a deeper kind of meditation on those sorts of things. It's really good on many, many different levels, but it's also just a really great read,
Yeah.
Just keeps
She handled
you going.
everything so beautifully.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I've been wanting to talk about it forever. So we will definitely talk about it again. Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, thank
all right.
you.
All right. All favorites of mine so far. Lynn, let's have another.
Hey, good morning. The first book I wanted to talk about is The Kingmaker by Sonia Purnell. I read that book recently, and it's incredible. It's a page turner. It's the life of Pamela Churchill. She ends up Pamela Harriman. She is Winston Churchill's daughter-in-law, and she's a very well-bred European woman, but one without money and one without much education. She gets into a disastrous marriage with Randolph Churchill, but what comes from that marriage is, one, she has a child, and two, her relationship with Winston and Clementine Churchill. She's very, very, very close to those two, and in fact, is not an advisor to Churchill per se at all, but she has this charisma, she has this manner, she's got this charm that people can't really define, that attract both men and women, and men and women in power. So what she is able to do with Churchill is talk to a lot of people, and she understands military strategies. This is during World War II. She was a very big help to Churchill, to the British ambassador, and to the United States, just by knowing the people that she knew and having the conversations that she had. She's very famous for putting on these dinner parties, mostly men, mostly powerful men, because that's what she was really after. Not so much the power for herself, but the power to let the right hand know what the left hand was doing in the middle of this war, um, World War II. And she is in England. She's being bombed. She's right in the thick of it, and she stays. Um, One thing the book does that I had not read in the past is it really, when you're at World War II with Winston Churchill, it goes meeting by meeting by meeting that he is having with President of the United States, ambassadors, many, many people that she's in the same room as. And she's picking up all of the information. She's giving some of her, intel to them. She was really quite influential. So I thoroughly enjoyed, especially, of course, that part of the book, because the meetings with Churchill in World War II, I had never seen those before. I've read a book on Pamela Churchill before, and this was totally different. Of course, that was 30 years ago, so my perspective on it was completely different. Um, she divorces Randolph Churchill. She kind of comes the Hollywood way. She's married to playwright Leland Hayward for quite a while. She's married to Averell Harriman, who is also in politics and also a very, very wealthy man. And it just goes through her life as she transcends her reputation as a Churchill and makes one of her own um, as a real player in American and European politics. Someone who just gets in the room, understands what people are saying, and is very eager to give that information, not as a spy, but to who might need it to really, I mean, obviously, to elect the best people and to hope for an end to World War II initially. Um, so it was just fascinating. Um, the book that I read about Pamela Churchill was probably, like I said, I don't know, maybe 25, 30 years ago. And my opinion of her was so different then. I was a much younger woman and I judged her. I really thought, pretty woman, hung around a lot of powerful men. I just really, for some reason, looked down on her, like thought that I was better than. Anyway, at this age, I knew that I wanted to reinvestigate exactly what she did and how much she helped and how brilliant she was um, with her strategy to achieve power for the Democratic Party when she was an American and to achieve intelligence. And it's just really fascinating. She starts her own, once she's in the US, she starts her own PAM PAC where she raises money for the Democratic Party. She helped get Bill Clinton elected as governor. She just raised all this money for the Democratic Party, and she was a very big part of having several presidents help get elected.
So I knew like the later part about her actually, but I didn't,
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with all this with the earlier stuff. And this is so intriguing. And it sounds like it reads like, like a novel.
It does.
So yeah.
It is so interesting, and
I
have
think
so
all
much
of us
respect for
all
her.
of us want to read it now. I've like picked it up several times looking at it, and it sounds great. So
Highly
yeah.
recommend it. The
Yeah,
meetings that she has with people of power that they detail that I had not read before,
right.
I can't say enough how interesting they are.
Excellent.
Fascinating.
The thing that I find really interesting is like how interesting of a brain she had to like
Right.
synthesize all this information and know
Right.
who to put together, like with her connections, her social
Mm-hmm.
connections, and then her brain working in tandem like that. That's just like that's kind of that's brilliant, and it doesn't happen. That's just like by chance. This she was put into this social situation and then was able to use her brain for the betterment of, you know, of like her goals and her values, you know.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, really
Highly
good.
recommend.
Yeah. Thank you, Lynn. All right, Julia, back to you.
Okie doke. My next one is one of my favorite novels of the season this time. This is Kira Jane Buxton's Tartufo. Some of you may remember Kira Jane Buxton's Hollow Kingdom, which was a finalist for the Thurber Prize for it's a fiction prize. Tartufo is a utter delight of a novel. It's on the Indie Next list this month, and it is about this sort of this Tuscan hill town that is dying economically, and it's like it's there's a new mayor that's just taken over, and she has sort of realized the extent to which this town has no money, and is sort of somewhat frantically trying to figure out how she's going to, first of all, break the news to the rest of the city council that they don't have any money, and also then how she's going to fix it. You know, kids have been moving out for years and not coming back because there's no real economic sort of incentive for them to come back. And it's this like hilarious cast of Italians in this town, and one of whom is a truffle hunter who his husband has recently died, and he is training a new truffle hunting puppy. And this truffle hunting puppy finds a 6-pound white truffle, which it explains in the book, but basically this is like a white truffle is very rare. A 6-pound white truffle is unheard of. But the thing with white truffles is that they need to be auctioned off immediately because they have to be cooked, because they start to lose flavor as soon as they're harvested out of the ground. So, of course, as this town sort of comes together to auction off this truffle, chaos rains down. People are coming in from, Sotheby's and from all over the world, like trying to buy this truffle. It keeps getting stolen, and people keep trying to it's hysterical. It is, like I said, an utter delight of a novel. If you're feeling like you need a little bit of escapism, it provides that. It's excellently written. Lynn, I think you were saying yesterday, we were chatting about this book, and one of the descriptions, I love that you sort of hooked into the description of how truffles grow, and what happens, how they get plucked out of the ground, and what happens. There's sort of this lush writing about that.
Yes,
it's just a delight. Yeah.
Andrea, like, what's up, Doc? Said with truffles. Kira Jane Buxton is, well, you probably know, Julia, going back to Hollow Kingdom, I was like an early adopter. And it's been a staff rec of mine for a long time. She's so funny. She has such a turn of phrase and a way of writing. Genuinely, like, Hollow Kingdom was a book that I read parts of it out loud to people who were around me while I was reading it, because it was laugh out loud funny. And she just understands, animals and people and behavior. And this is a departure from the previous two. There was Hollow Kingdom, and then there was a follow-up to Hollow Kingdom. The title, it escapes me at the moment. So this is a little of, she's moving more into people and out of, less animal voices, but it doesn't really matter because she's got such a great insight into the ways of thinking. And this thing with the truffles is not, it's real, I met a man from a small town exactly like this one, in Italy on the train, and he was talking about how he found a truffle was as big as a baby head, and going on about how like it was worth, you know, all this money and everything. So it's hilarious. She's a wonderful writer, well deserving of Indie Next Pick. It's really, really fun. And for anybody who's looking for, you know, needs to laugh or looking for a little escape, but some really like crackerjack writing, this is a really great book. Love her. So thanks, Julia. All right, Andrea, back to you.
Thank you. Last week I discussed They by Kay Dick on the McNally Editions classics list. And I want to talk about another McNally Editions title. We're very excited that we now have McNally Editions in our bag. And this is a February 11th title, but now in stores. And this is Radio Treason, The Trials of Lord Haha, the British voice of Nazi Germany. And this comes from Rebecca West, one of the stalwart writers, journalists, novelists, nonfiction writers of the 20th century. And it's basically a gripping courtroom drama of a Brooklyn-born Englishman. So he became an English citizen later in his life, but was born in Brooklyn, who became the voice of Nazi Germany during the war. He was a propagandist that had a radio show, and he was finally caught. No one knew who he was, but they found out who it was and took him down. And it was called Germany Calling. And it was basically just a Nazi propaganda outfit calling for the Brits and the Allies to surrender. I'm glad that he was not successful, and I was glad he was caught. The basis, this all started out in 1945 when the New Yorker commissioned Rebecca West to cover the London trial of Lord Haha, his real name is William Joyce, who, like I said, had been caught. And so it's like basically a play-by-play of the courtroom revelations. It's edge of your seat sort of stuff. The writing is excellent. West was also a great social critic, so you get a lot of that in there. It's not just, this is what happened, from the day to day. So it's really nice to see this. It's one of those classic eyewitness accounts, a la Hannah Arendt's Eichmann in Jerusalem. I really think it's timely. When this was being presented at our last sales conference meetings, I was immediately struck by the similarities of Lord Haha's sort of fast-talking spin. Reminds me of Stephen Miller, a provocateur and chaos agent now in the Trump administration. Really a lot of similarities there. And I also think that it's also timely in that it shows how middle-class resentments turned a man against his country, which is, I think, something that we're seeing, not only in this country, but all over the world right now. So this has a lot going for it. It's 192 pages, $19 trade paperback with flaps. It's they're all really handsome volumes, and I think this is the perfect time to delve into what William Joyce, Lord Haha, was trying to do, and how he was brought to justice. And may it continue in our day.
May it, indeed. These types of books are really important to be reading, and I think a lot of people are finding them and reading them. And reading books will always be will always be the way, I think. And independent bookstores, let's have a little quick shout out for the independents, and finding these books and having them be available, especially in a time where, the books are being banned and things are happening. So for all of these reasons, I think that these are important books to be reading. And if you needed another reason, they are really good looking editions of books. These, it's a book you actually, you really want to pick up and hold. I know that's not the key reason, but it doesn't hurt. So
Nice to surround yourself with beautiful things.
exactly. And if they're books, even better. So thanks, Andrea. All right, Shannon.
Okay. Andrea, you are McNally Editions. We used to sell them, and I was sad to see them go, but glad to see that you have them. They do such great stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. My next up on my list is a memoir. It is called The Mother Lode by Sarah Hoover. And Deborah knows I love a good memoir. This cover is everything, I kind of think.
So great.
It is, yeah, isn't it good? So Sarah Hoover is she worked as a she worked in a very famous art gallery in New York. She is married to a very famous artist, Tom Sachs, I believe. And this is her memoir about having her first child and basically finding out she had postpartum depression. But it is, it's raw, it's unfiltered, it is funny, it is visceral. It like all of those things, and I think that it will strike many a nerve. One of the reviews that I read about it was candid, but one of our authors wrote in her review, she says it's almost inadvisably truthful. If you want to hear from someone that feels like your best friend, everything that they're feeling and going through, then this is like a no hold bars account. So I loved it. It definitely struck a chord for me. Apparently I have a motherhood theme on this, on my last two picks, but yeah, she's a brilliant writer. This is also a Mary Sue Rucci book, which
Right.
the title before was, she's one of for you guys who don't know, one of our editors at Simon and Schuster, and she's just fantastic.
She really is.
Yeah. But this is on shelves now.
I read an early copy, I feel like a long time ago, because as you know, also Shannon, I love a memoir, and I love a motherhood memoir, which are we still calling them momoirs?
Yeah.
I wrote one, and that's what they were calling it then. Anyway, but so I was really intrigued immediately and read a real early copy, and I really liked it. It's really good. Her writing is very raw. So if you can't handle raw, but I think at this point, but it's really good. It's really good, and it's really genuine and honest, and completely winning in that way. So I thought it was, parts of it difficult but relatable, and sometimes things are relatable and difficult and not fun to read, but this is, yes, it's difficult and you can relate to it, but it's not the kind where it will, like, no, I don't want to hear about that kind of a thing.
I think there is enough levity in there, like her humor helps bring you through it, but definitely the taboo of just, like, you're expected to be happy and like immediately have this bond and feeling, and motherhood glow.
Right. I mean, there's just a lot of things, I think this falls into the category of things they don't tell you,
the fact that really isn't, the case for some. But anyways, I thought she did a fantastic job. And yes, if you are a lover of memoirs like Deborah and I, then I urge you to pick it up.
Excellent. Thank you, Shannon. All
Thank you.
right. Back to you, Lynn. Lynn, I think you're muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I finally figured that out. Thank you.
Okay.
Um, my last book I want to discuss is a book called Havoc by Christopher Bolin. I'm a very big fan of the author. I consider him a literary mystery writer. And I read a lot of mysteries. It doesn't have to be literary to me. You know, I love them for many, many different reasons. But his books are beautifully written. This book, well, one, the New York Times had named it Best Thriller of the Year, and I have to agree. This book is in the vein of The Bad Seed. On vacation in a luxury hotel, you've got a meddlesome older woman who just sort of who thinks she's escaped her past and just is here to luxuriate in the heat and making friends and just enjoying herself. And but you know, she sort of meets some people and decides to insinuate herself into a family, a mother and son that she decides is, you know, need her help. And she's met her match with the young son as far as um, conniving, really just cutthroat behavior. And y'all, I have read so many mysteries, so many books. I don't think I've ever seen characters like this. I just, it's not a funny book, but I just kept laughing at their audacity. So I highly recommend, and I really think it's for anyone, even if they don't care for mysteries. I certainly have some customers who really like spy books and procedurals, and I've given them this book and they've absolutely loved it. So it seems to appeal to any age, any gender, and it is very unique and enjoyable. And I absolutely loved it.
I have
You'll love
picked
it.
up this book so many times. But Lynn, I'm so glad that you're talking about it because I picked it up and as Joey points out, such a great cover as well, just draws you right in. And wondered about it because I haven't read it, but now I know I want to read it. I'm definitely right there in the audience for that book. So, and also great to have
Recommend.
another recommendation for people looking for the mysteries, you know, because people come in all the time and they want something new. So, excellent. Thanks, Lynn. All right, we're gonna lead off the lightning round or the bonus round or the final round. Julia.
Okay, so my final one is another music book, although this one a little broader than a memoir. It's called Pretend We're Dead: The Rise, Fall, and Resurrection of Women in Rock in the 90s. And this is one of I'm a big music book fan. I'll read basically any music books. And, you know, just for full disclosure, I was a teenager in the 90s. And so this is my sort of era of music. But I got to say, it's based on an oral history project that the author did called the Women of Rock Oral History Project, which is archived in Ohio, in a university in Ohio somewhere. I'm going to forget which university, but she interviewed all of these women from 90s rock bands, everyone from Sheryl Crow and Alanis Morissette to Liz Phair and Babes in Toyland and L7 and all of these bands that came out in the 90s. And, you know, it's interesting because as I was selling this, I was sort of thinking, and I was like, you know, yeah, in the 70s and 80s, there were women in rock, most definitely, but there weren't a ton of women in rock, and you had great bands. You had Heart, and you had, you know, the Runaways and the Go-Go's and the Bangles, and you know, Bananarama and all those great bands. But in the 90s, really, women in rock exploded. I mean, there were hundreds of bands of women led. You know, she interviews Shirley Manson from Garbage, sort of all of these women sort of leading these rock bands. And this really talks about sort of that trajectory, like why a lot of these record companies started investing so heavily in women. And then also, the book makes the argument, and you can decide for yourself whether or not you find it convincing or not. I did, but that after 9/11, basically a lot of these women were abandoned by their record labels. And they talk about, you know, basically it was such a sort of masculine era, and they were, yeah, a lot of their record labels like didn't want to be putting out these great rock music by women. Of course, we had great pop music by women and with women at that time, but the rock sort of fell out of favor. And so I think this is just a great sort of a great history, a great cataloging of, you know, sort of the great bands, female-led bands of the 90s. But I had such a good time reading it, and really thinking long and hard about what it was like to have all these sort of female, you know, I was listening to rock more than pop in the 90s, and sort of having these women at the forefront of so much, what that effect had on sort of us as a culture and me personally as a teenager at the time. It's a wonderful book. I really highly recommend it. And if you're into music and into music history, this is an absolute can't miss.
I have got to have a copy of this book. Why don't I have it already? I don't know.
Because your rep is dropping the ball.
Yeah, I have got, this is all of this. I'm as big a fan, you know, Julia, I'm as big as any music book, but especially one like this that is so interesting, that I was just thinking when you were talking about after 9/11 and what happened, and then we started, you know, then it was like the era of Britney Spears, right? After that.
Yeah.
That, right? Wasn't it? I mean, we sort of
she came
went
out
in
in
that
90.
direction.
Baby One More Time is like 98. So
Okay.
it was right before then. Yeah.
But that it sort of went in that direction, right?
Exactly.
After that. So interesting to think about that. All right. Well, I've got to read this book, so go look for it. It's on sale now? Okay.
I'll send it to you. Yes, it's on sale now.
Excellent. Thank you, Julia. All right, Andrea, your last book of the day.
Thank you. I want to talk about The Enigma Girl by Henry Porter. This is from Atlantic Monthly Press, the sister publisher of Grove. And this is a really great modern day thriller set in the UK. And it's got scenes in Europe, like the continent as well. I just want to read a quote from the Financial Times, just kind of set it up. Henry Porter is one of our most accomplished thriller writers, and I totally agree. The Economist says, Porter has learned the oldest lesson that characterization and a narrative are all, and it's so right on, that's spot on. The characters in this novel, this thriller, are so memorable, so great. Our protagonist, Slim Parsons, is a deep cover operative for M16, and like goes undercover for 2 years, and she's in a branch that are trying to uncover financial crimes, and her cover is blown when the dastardly like mastermind behind a huge network of companies that are dealing with they employ migrant. They don't employ. They force. It's modern day slavery, basically, using migrant workers who are duped into working for them in the UK. So her cover is blown when he attempts to rape Slim on a plane. But okay, she's a badass. Let me just tell you, Slim is a badass. Her weapon of choice, which she doesn't have on the plane, but she saves herself through quick wit and also incredible training in martial arts. But her weapon of choice is a pickaxe. Just let you know. And so then she goes to ground, is working. She's asked. She's in trouble because she basically takes the plane, hijacks it, has it land in Montenegro or something, finds her way back after a month to the UK, but then is on leave because the organization isn't happy with like the international incident that she caused by doing this whole thing. But what's a girl to do when you're being sexually attacked on a plane, right? On a private plane. She's asked to go undercover to investigate sort of a Assange-like newspaper outfit in the UK because they're stealing like secrets, government secrets, and they don't know how they're doing it. She's involved in this whole new drama. Her old roommate, ex-lovers become involved. Also, she's very interesting in that she's an equal opportunity lover, so she likes the boys and the girls. It's not heavy-handed. It seems very natural, like these descriptions of her romances. Her mother is ill. Her brother has been missing for 15 years. All this stuff comes together in this beautiful brew that is just unbelievably fun to read. I just cannot recommend this enough. I think it's like 480 pages or 450 pages basically, and I was completely held the whole time. I just was completely absorbed. And as a rep, you have to read a lot of manuscripts, but I stuck with this one because it was just too good. And so I highly recommend The Enigma Girl. Henry Porter is just such a great writer. Somebody else said that it's filling the gap left by Len Dayton and Jean Le Carré, his work, and I totally agree. Also, for fans and readers of the Mick Herron Slough House books, and gosh darn it, this is just a ripping good yarn.
This was the one that when I started, I sent you I think an email immediately, right, Andrea? And I was like, I'm loving this book so much. Exactly the same reaction just pulled me right in, and I was like, it was late at night, which is unfortunately when I have to do a lot of the reading, it's like a up all night kind of a thing. Leave the lights on. You just want to keep reading.
I stayed up until like 2 o'clock, like a couple of nights reading it,
and then you don't even realize, and you're like, look, it's fantastic. A really, really, can't right with you there. It's a great recommended, really excellent book.
Yeah, and this is edited by legendary Grove Atlantic publisher Morgan Entrekin. He doesn't always edit a lot of books, and so that's just like a testament to what how great he thinks Henry Porter is, and just wants to build his audience in the States. So
excellent. And I like the Karen reference as well. Some people are looking for the slow horses type of thing. Perfect for that too. Thanks, Andrea. All right, Shannon, let's wrap it up for the day.
Yes, I'm going to bring us home with a new in paperback. I don't often do this, but I feel like this is one that is so deserving of it. And I don't know if I got a chance to talk about it in hardcover. So now is the time. The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. It just came out, I think, a week or two ago in paper. This is horror. It has won all of the awards. It was a Los Angeles Times Book Prize winner, a New York Times notable book, a Locus Award finalist, Bram Stoker, the Shirley Jackson Award. It just, like, nobody can say a bad thing about it. I feel like it's one of those that is going to be a classic in the horror canon. But it is a historical, if you will. It's set in 1950s in the Jim Crow Florida. And it's about a boy who at 12 years old ends up kicking a wealthy landowner's son in defense of his sister, and he a young Black boy, and he gets sent to a reform school for boys for 6 months, and he has always seen ghosts, but now he is seeing ghosts and horrible things. So this is so good. Her writing is really good. It's haunting. It's creepy. It's a lot. And I was listening to actually an interview with her in Tananarive, and she was saying that it's based on her uncle was in a reform school like this. And she knew she wanted to write about it, and her she felt that this, doing it as horror, actually softened maybe the things that happened, which, how terrible is that? But anyways, I just think that this book is really noteworthy, and I'm glad that it's out in paperback. And I think that it's gonna, yeah, like I said, be a classic addition to the horror canon.
Yeah, we always it's always great when it paperback comes out like this, because it draws in a whole people who read a lot, and there are a lot of people who read a lot, and they, they wait for paperbacks, and so it brings new readers in all the time, and so, and horror, as we know, is really having a moment.
It is
both in between covers and like in real life. So so great addition, as you said, and sort of expanding the genre a little bit, which is excellent.
Oh, and I should mention, she teaches at UCLA. She teaches horror and Afrofuturism. So that's a local.
That's great.
A local connection. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. A wonderful recommend. Thank you, Shannon. And I didn't know much about this one either, so thank you for me as well, for being able to expand my recommend list. These are all fantastic. What a great, I mean, I do say this every week, but I really feel like this week was really, really great books. Maybe it's just because I've read almost all of them. I've been waiting to talk about them. So thank you so much, all of you, for bringing it this week. Andrea Tetrick from PGW, Julia Callahan from Hachette, not in her car, or in a parking lot. Shannon Grant from Simon & Schuster, and of course, Lynn, thank you so much up there in the bookstore at Diesel. And behind the scenes, Joey, for always being so nimble on the links. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for joining us. We're going to be back again next week. Still here doing the thing, and continuing, carrying on. And as we will continue to do. So hope you will come back next week and join us then. We'll be back with more reps and more books and more booksellers. So we will see you then. And in the meantime, everybody stay safe and, continue reading, because that's what we got, right? Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.